All right, let's take a look at problem number 7, which is similar to number 6. Again, we have the square root of x minus 1 plus 10 equals 3. So I'm going to rewrite that just to give some space. X minus 1, square root of x minus 1 plus 10 equals 3. Notice the 10 is a constant that's alone by itself. So let's go ahead and eliminate that one first. And then we'll deal with the radical. This cancels, but we're still left with the square root of x minus 1. And here we get negative 7. Now keep in mind that, again, we want to eliminate this radical. How do we do it? Since it's a square root, we do to the second power. If I do it on the left, I got to do it on the right. This cancels that. So I'm left with x minus 1, which is the radicand that was up underneath the radical sign, equals negative 7 squared is 49. Because a negative times a negative is a positive. And now I add 1 to both sides. So x is equal to 50. All right, good. Okay. And number 8. So here we're back to looking at some graphs. Compare each function to the parent graph. Let's talk about the parent graph. The parent graph for a radical equation is the square root of x. So it's just the square root of x without any transformations. So there's no minus 1 plus 4, anything like that. So nothing underneath the radical with the x and nothing outside of it. So this is like where it starts. This is the original starting point for any radical function. And then from there it moves based on what is added or subtracted underneath the radical and outside the radical. So in this case, we have f of x is equal to the square root of x. See, there's that square root of x, which matches this, but then they put a minus 8 on it. So this is going to be some movement here. And what we're going to do is compare them. So we're going to go to Desmos again. We'll take a look at the parent function, the parent graph, and then we'll take a look at the transformed graph. So I've already graphed the parent function right here. So let's turn it on. So there's the parent function, and let's do the one that we're checking to see what happened from one to the other. So let me close this pane out and see if we can move this over some. So here's the original parent graph right here. It always starts in the middle at the origin at 0, 0. But then from there, the new graph moved, it just looks like it did just a slide, a translation right over and started at 8.0. So, in which direction did it go? Well, I went to the right, didn't I? See, I started here and I went to the right and ended up there. So, and it did go horizontally because it's on the x-axis. The y-axis is vertical, which means we can go ahead and eliminate C. It didn't make a vertical transition, it made a horizontal transition. It didn't go 8 units to the right. It went to the, I'm sorry, it didn't go to the left. Didn't go to the left. We just determined it went to the right. So it's gotta be either B or D because it fits the first part. Now what we need to do to verify everything else is to look at the domain and range. This domain says that the domain is every x value where x is greater than or equal to 8. If we look back here, I'll just write it. The x value is 8, and it is going towards the positive side. So that means the values of x are getting bigger, right? They're going towards positive infinity. So this fits. And this one says that the y, that the range is all y values where the y is greater than or equal to 0. Well, y starts out 0, and as it goes this way, for example, let's see, what is this point here? This is 12, 2, so 0, 2, so it's getting bigger, greater than or equal to 0. We can pick another point, here's 1, that's over at 17, 3, so y is getting bigger, 0, 2, 3. X is getting bigger, 8, 12, 17. X is starting at 8, is getting larger. Y is starting at 0, is getting larger. So it looks like B works. Because here it says that the X value was 0 and the y was -8. It wasn't. It's 8 and 0. Okay, number 9. Describe the end behavior of the square root of x plus 3 minus 2. So let's go ahead and we're going to open the pane back up because I've already graphed it. I'll just go ahead and show it now. So let's show that. And we're going to clear this up. The square root of x plus 3 minus 2. Close the pane so we can get a better look at it. And let's move the graph up. All right. We want to know what's the end behavior of this one. So let's identify this starting point here. This is over -1, -2, -3, and it's down -2. So there's our starting point. That's going to help us out. So let's take a look at the answer choices. And notice, even though we started at -3 for the x value, looks like it's getting bigger. And we started at -2 for the y value, and it's also getting bigger. So that will help us out a lot. Now, so the first part of A says as x approaches -3, y approaches -2. Well, that's true. The second part, as x approaches infinity, that means as x gets bigger, y gets bigger. Well, we determined that that was the case. So, looks like we found our answer already. And there it is. And the last problem, number 10. State the domain and range of the function graphed. So in this case, they've already graphed the function for us. It's right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and mark this beginning point, this 2, 0 is where it starts right there. So that's going to help us out with our answer choices. So A reads that the domain is all x values where x is greater than 2. Now this is not completely correct. And the reason it's not is because the starting point is at 2. And this says greater than 2, which means we do not include 2. We just move up to 2.1, 2.2, 3, 4, 5. But it doesn't say that 2 is part of these included solutions or values, which 2 is. It starts at 2. If this had said greater than or equal to 2, that would have been correct. But it doesn't, so we cannot include that one. We can go ahead and exclude C also because it's saying x is less than 2. These x values are starting at 2 and they're getting bigger because they're going towards positive infinity. They're headed towards positive infinity, not negative infinity. So they're not less than 2. Get rid of that one. Let's check B. Domain equals all x values where x is greater than or equal to 2. Okay, that matches. Range is all y values where y is less than 0. Okay, so here's the y coordinate. As we go towards positive infinity and go up, these y values are getting larger, not smaller. It says less than 0, which means they're going into the negatives, and it's not going into the negatives. It's not going down here. Because if we look at some other points, if we mark a few other points, this is 5, 3. See, it went from 0 to 3, it's getting bigger. It's not getting smaller. So this doesn't work, so the answer will be D. All right, so there's your study guide. If you have any more questions, anything you need cleared up before the quiz, then we will address that in class. Good luck to you on your quiz. You're gonna do great.